Hi there, I'm Marla. My mom cut me out of every family trip for 14 years. Not a single invite, not a single explanation. Then one day she booked a $12,000 a night resort. My resort. The one I built from the ground up. Why now? Why pretend nothing ever happened? Why erase me, then show up on my doorstep like we were always close? Families don't just forget you. They choose to. What time are you listening to this and where are you watching from? Drop a comment below, I really want to know. The sun hadn't yet burned off the coastal mist when I stood on the observation deck, a mug of bitter espresso warming my palms. From this vantage point, I saw them, stepping off the private shuttle like royalty. Leah, my mother, led the way with that familiar uptight posture, sunglasses on despite the shade. Wendy followed, tugging her designer luggage. Barry lumbered behind, already on a phone call. And then there was Tessa, smiling, clueless. I didn't move, just watched, just breathed. My heart didn't race. It never did anymore. But something behind my ribs shifted, old and sharp like a splinter working its way to the surface. 14 years. 14 years without an invitation, without a how are you, without a damn postcard. Now here they were, unaware they were stepping directly into my world. My trap, if I'm honest. Paradise Vale gleamed under the morning light. Every inch of it bore my fingerprint. The imported marble, the scent of white gardenia at the entrance, the infinity pool that wrapped like silk around the main villa, all mine. Every stone, every beam. I'd built this sanctuary from rage and ambition, and just enough grace to keep the darkness inside me in check. Back then, I was just a 17-year-old with a suitcase in hand, and a mother who looked me in the eye and said, "There's no room this time, sweetheart. Maybe next year." But next year never came. Now I owned the goddamn room. They entered the lobby, and I stepped out from behind the concierge desk like a phantom. The silence that followed wasn't awkward. It was surgical. "Leah," I said evenly, "welcome to Paradise Vale." She froze mid-step, her mouth parted slightly, eyes flickering over my tailored blazer, my nameplate. "Marla?" she whispered. "Manager, actually," I corrected. Then after a beat, I smiled. "Also, owner," Barry muttered. "You've got to be kidding me." "Nope," I said, popping the app slightly for effect. "You booked a vacation at my resort and I personally approved the reservation." They were stunned. Not out of delight. This was no joyous reunion. It was confusion, panic, and something else that twisted Leah's features. Guilt, maybe, or fear. I motioned to the bellhop. "Allow me to walk you to your villa. I chose it myself." The hallway stretched long and cold as I led them through. Tessa chattered nervously about the ocean view, oblivious to the tension wrapping tighter with every step. When we reached Villa Sequoia, I unlocked the door. "I believe you've stayed in this one before," I said. Leah flinched. 16 years ago? I stood in this exact spot with a duffel bag slung over one shoulder. Wendy had already claimed the bed by the window. Mom's voice was sharp. "This isn't your place this year, Marla. You're staying with your father." That was the first summer I realized I was disposable. Now, the room was identical. Same framed shell print on the wall, same oak dresser. But there were new touches. A photo on the shelf of 3 girls in swimsuits, with one cut out. Literally. Scissors still jagged along the edge. Wendy went quiet. Barry cleared his throat. Tessa again said nothing. "Leah?" She blinked once. "This is some kind of joke." "No," I said calmly. "This is the villa you stayed in the year I got left behind." I left them to unpack in the ghost of my teenage heartbreak and slipped into my own suite. Behind the minibar, I pulled out a weathered photo album. All those years, trips I never took, smiles I never gave. Pictures stolen from social media, printouts from Wendy's feed, screenshots of Leah's outdated Facebook posts. I flipped to a page of the Grand Canyon trip, the one where they said the altitude would make me sick. Then my phone buzzed. New notification. Leah Powell has requested a change to the reservation. I smiled to myself. Let the reunion begin. The email came at 9:13 a.m., subject line, final guest list, welcome dinner. I opened it while sipping lukewarm coffee on the balcony outside my suite. The PDF loaded slow, as if dragging its feet toward the inevitable. I scanned the names. Leah Powell, Wendy Vance, Barry Powell, Tessa Jennings. Plus ones. Children, staff. My name, missing. Again. I stared at the empty space where it should have been, a hollow gap between reserved and relevant. It wasn't a glitch. Not at this level of planning. I'd built this resort from the bones of precision. If I was absent, it was because someone made me that way. This wasn't a mistake. It was a message. I headed downstairs, instincts sharp. The lobby murmured with soft classical music and the scent of citrus polish. A young concierge named Dylan, fresh-faced, overly polite, stood behind the desk. As I approached, he went stiff, like he sensed the storm brewing under my calm exterior. I asked him gently, "Could you confirm something for me?" He blinked. "Of course, Miss Vance." I noticed my name wasn't on the guest list for tonight's dinner. Curious, who compiled it? He hesitated, then, "Mrs. Powell provided the finalized list herself. She, made a note." "What kind of note?" He swallowed. "She specifically asked that if someone named Marla Vance were present at the property, there be no interaction, no invitations, no involvement." I nodded once. No theatrics, just that brutal clarity, the kind that leaves bruises on the inside. "She didn't know who I was, did she?" I asked. "No, ma'am. She thought you were just a name." Not her daughter. Not the woman who built this oasis from the ground up while she was busy making me disappear from family photos. Back in my suite, I sat on the edge of the bed and stared at my father's old wristwatch ticking away on the nightstand, the one relic I had after he walked out. It was broken, perpetually stuck at 4:42 p.m., but I couldn't throw it away. Some things you hold on to, even if they don't work anymore. 16 years ago. We stood in line at the check-in counter at JFK. Leah handed out boarding passes like they were prizes. I reached for mine. She pulled her hand back. "Sorry, honey, there's no seat for you." I looked at my father. He looked at the floor. I still remember the exact layout of that terminal, the sound of the loudspeaker, the tightness in my chest. That was the summer I learned my presence was optional. Now, I stood inside a 5-star resort with my name etched into every lease, every contract, and I still wasn't invited to dinner. So be it. I didn't throw anything, didn't scream. I stood, smoothed the front of my dress, and called the kitchen. "Make sure the chef prepares the special truffle risotto tonight," I said, "and have the wine decanted an hour early. I'll be hosting." I could have erased her back, could have denied them service, but that would have been petty, and petty wasn't power. At 7:02 p.m., I stood at the entrance of the candlelit dining room, a glass of wine in one hand, the room's eyes in the other. Leah's head turned first. Wendy stiffened next to her. Barry raised his brows. Their expressions were priceless. I smiled and clinked my glass gently. "My name's not on the guest list," I said, voice smooth as the Merlot I sipped. "But I believe I still have a seat at the table." They didn't respond. I didn't need them to. "Erase me once," I whispered to myself, stepping inside. "Shame on you." The screen flickered to life just as dessert was cleared. I timed everything precisely. Lights dimmed, wine topped off, guests reclined with lazy smiles after the meal. The perfect moment for nostalgia, or so they thought. I took the mic. "A little something I prepared. A memory reel for the Powell family. 14 years of unforgettable moments. I hope you enjoy it." The first image flashed. Leah, sun-kissed and laughing in Santorini, glass of wine in hand. Wendy in a matching sundress beside her. Uncle Barry with his ridiculous foam hat at Disney. Tessa as a toddler, face sticky with cotton candy. Slide after slide, year after year. But I wasn't in any of them. Not once. I stood off to the side of the theater, watching more than the screen, watching them. Some stiffened, others chuckled awkwardly. Leah tilted her head, confusion flashing across her face like a shadow. Then my voiceover began, piped gently over the speakers. "This was Hawaii, 2012. I worked 60-hour weeks in a windowless office while you sipped cocktails on the sand." A pause. "Paris, 2015. I had strep throat, no insurance. Wendy, nice beret." The images continued. Miami, Tokyo, Aspen, all smiles, all curated. No trace of me. A rustle of discomfort swept through the room. Barry leaned forward. Well now, Marla, this feels a bit dramatic, don't you think? We were young. People forget things. I stepped into the soft light from the screen. Calm, dead center. No one forgot me, Barry. They erased me. Leah shifted. Turn it off, she hissed, low but sharp. Wendy fumbled with the remote, already locked from the control booth. I turned to face them fully. I didn't take these photos. I didn't sneak into your cloud accounts. I just downloaded what you chose to post, what you proudly shared with the world. I clicked the remote again. A collage filled the screen. 12 different Christmas mornings, 11 birthdays, 9 family reunions. I wasn't invited to a single one, but the pictures were easy to find. Hashtags like #FamilyFirst made it simple. The audience, extended family, plus ones, and staff who had stuck around out of curiosity, sat silent. Leah stood, lips thin and trembling. You're humiliating this family. No, I'm just showing you what it's like from my side of the lens. For a second, no one breathed. Then Wendy shot up from her seat. This is sick, she spat. You think you're justified just because you made a little money? She shoved past the aisle, muttering something I didn't catch. Leah followed, but not before casting me a look. Half venom, half something dangerously close to regret. I waited until the door clicked shut behind them. Then, slowly, the final slide appeared. A photo board from a family BBQ 10 years back. Cropped neatly in the corner, barely visible, a folded paper pinned behind a cupcake tray. I zoomed in. My college acceptance letter to NYU, the only one who ever got in, covered, almost hidden, by cake. I turned to the few who remained. This was just the beginning. The next morning, I found Wendy standing alone in the breakfast lounge, swirling cream into her coffee, like she was trying to dissolve guilt. Her eyes flicked up as I approached. That was intense last night, she offered with a half smile, like we'd watched a suspense movie together instead of reliving years of neglect. I didn't sit. You knew, I said. She blinked. Knew what? Don't insult either of us, she sighed, setting her mug down with a soft clink. I didn't know everything, Mom said it was easier, less conflict. My jaw clenched. So you chose less conflict over your sister? She reached for words, hands trembling slightly. I was scared to stand up to her, Mar. You know how she gets. And every time I wanted to call... But you didn't, I cut in. You smiled for the camera. You posted the photos. You played along. Tears welled in her eyes, but I was unmoved. You felt bad. That's not the same as doing better. I didn't know about everything, she said again quietly. That line, it was always their favorite excuse. I turned away. I didn't owe her comfort. I didn't owe her softness. Later that afternoon, a gentle knock came at my office door. I didn't look up when I said, "Come in." Wendy entered, holding something in her hands, aged paper, creased at the edges. I found this, she said, in Mom's luggage, hidden in a zipped lining. I stared. It was my scholarship letter, from NYU, the original, the one I'd thought was lost in the mail. I remember you said they never responded, she whispered. But they did. She just didn't send it. Didn't want you to go. My fingers tightened around the paper as if it might disintegrate. The university crest stared back at me like a cruel joke. I'd been 17. I'd cried for weeks, thinking I wasn't good enough. I'd buried that dream, replaced it with working nights, eating ramen over legal textbooks printed in grayscale. She had taken that from me. A breath caught in my throat, but I forced it down. I wouldn't give Wendy the satisfaction of witnessing my pain. Why bring this now? I asked, voice flat. Because I should have fought for you then, and I can't go back, but maybe you'll understand. I didn't know this part. I said nothing. I took the letter and left. That evening, I walked out to the resort's fire pit. Guests had retreated for wine and soft music, but I stayed behind. I held the letter to the flames. It curled and blackened, the ink hissing quietly as it vanished. No more ghosts, I whispered. Behind me, near the edge of the courtyard, Leah stood watching. She didn't speak, just raised her glass slightly, her face unreadable. The red wine caught the firelight, gleaming like blood and crystal. I needed air. Real air. Not the kind that sat heavy in the villa walls, clinging to words unsaid and truths manipulated. So I buried myself in business. That evening, I met Connor for dinner at the edge of the resort's cliffside bistro, the sea curling against the rocks below like it was trying to speak. I hoped this meal would recalibrate me. Talk shop, talk strategy, talk anything but family. Connor looked tired, fidgety. His glass of Pinot stayed untouched. "I'm pushing forward with the expansion plan," I said, handing him a mock-up of the spa annex. "We'll target the Q4 crowd, northeastern retreats, influencer tie-ins." He didn't look at the design. His eyes stayed on mine. "Marla, there's something you should know." I set my fork down. "I met your mother," he began, "years ago, at the hospitality summit in Chicago." Of course she was there. Of course she couldn't help herself. She pulled me aside. Friendly tone? Charming, really. But she said you were, what did she call it? Ambitious to a fault. He paused. And unstable. I didn't react right away. I let the word unstable hang in the air like a stench no one acknowledged. "She painted you as a risk," he added gently. Back then, I believed her. The rest of the table faded. My salad, my strategy plans, the candles flickering in the wind, all static. All this time, I thought I'd been clawing uphill because of the weight of expectations, maybe imposter syndrome. But it had been her. Not just emotional rejection, but professional sabotage, quiet, strategic, and precise. "She didn't just erase me from family photos," I said finally. "She tried to erase me from the future." Connor hesitated, then slid his tablet across the table. I saved it. I opened the file. Subject line: professional caution. The body was even worse. "Marla Vance is emotionally erratic. Highly driven, yes, but prone to burnout, poor interpersonal boundaries, and deflecting blame. Just thought your firm should be aware." My hands shook as I read. "She tried to kill me before I even launched," I muttered. "Every closed door, every client who ghosted, and I thought it was me." Connor reached for his wine now, downing half the glass. "To be honest, I almost believed it too. But then I watched you build this empire from scratch." I didn't thank him. I didn't need his apology. I needed a plan. That night, back in my office, I pulled up our investor database. Every name Leah had tried to poison. I re-invited them. Not for revenge, for revelation. I wasn't just surviving her sabotage. I was rewriting the narrative she wrote for me. Let them see. Let them compare the woman in that email to the woman who built Paradise Vale from sand and spite. Around midnight, as I finalized the event details, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. One line. "Careful, you're not the only one who knows secrets." I stared at the screen, heat crawling up my spine like a warning. The morning after the dinner with Connor, I found myself staring at my untouched breakfast while Leah sliced into her melon with robotic grace. We sat 3 tables apart, the space between us crowded with everything we wouldn't say. I didn't look at her, and she didn't dare look at me. Wendy approached, cup of tea in one hand, her other clenched tightly at her side. "I need to show you something," she said quietly. We took the elevator up to my office in silence. Wendy held a folded piece of paper like it was smoldering. When she handed it to me, her eyes wouldn't meet mine. She never mailed it, but she wrote it. I found it tucked in her old planner, behind a blank page. I unfolded it slowly. It was a draft of a letter, typed, unsigned, but unmistakably my mother's voice, sharp, authoritative, disguised as maternal concern. "Marla, I'm writing this to formally sever ties for the good of both our lives. Your presence only brings volatility. You've chosen paths that consistently put yourself and those around you at risk. I release you to your independence and wash my hands of your chaos." She'd never sent it, but every word bled the truth of how she saw me. "She wanted to be done with me," I said. My voice was flat. "Just didn't have the guts to send it." Wendy bit her lip. "I don't think she ever stopped fearing you'd leave, like he did." He. My father. The ghost that haunted all of this. I tucked the letter into my desk drawer without another word. Later that afternoon, the silence finally cracked. Leah found me outside on the terrace, pretending to check on landscaping renovations. "You've made quite the spectacle lately," she said, not looking up. I didn't flinch. "You tried to end me before I ever began." She didn't deny it. Instead, her voice dropped. "You were too much like him. That scared me more than anything else. I turned to her slowly. Because he left you? She nodded, just once. You thought if you crushed me first, I wouldn't have the strength to walk away. Her fingers tightened around her wineglass. I tried to protect you. No, I said. You tried to own me. That's when her face cracked. Rage, sadness, confusion, all struggling behind her eyes. You don't get to weaponize fear and call it love, I said, the air between us electric and final. She left without another word. That night I burned the letter. I watched the flames eat every line, curling the paper inward like it was choking on its own bile. I didn't cry. I didn't hesitate. No more ghosts, I whispered. A knock came just as the fire was dying. It was one of the concierge team. Miss Vance, he said hesitantly. This was in Miss Powell's suitcase. She asked that it be handed to you. Said it was for the slideshow. He held out a small flash drive. I closed my fingers around it. It was warm, like it had been waiting. Inside, one folder, labeled Contingency. Breakfast was unusually quiet. The clinking of silverware against porcelain was all anyone seemed willing to contribute. Leah lifted her mimosa and offered a syrupy toast. To family, united and strong. Her voice had that over-polished edge, the kind she wore like a brooch to conceal a bruise. Wendy's jaw clenched mid-sip. Tessa kept her eyes on her plate, cutting into a mango as if it had wronged her. But she didn't look up, not once. Something was shifting. Later, I found Tessa pacing outside the spa pavilion, arms folded like armor. I need to talk to you, she said. Then, all in one breath, I know everything. I didn't respond, just waited. She inhaled sharply. I thought it was me. All those years? I thought I did something wrong, or that you didn't want to be around me. But I found stuff. Stuff she wrote. And suddenly, it all clicked. Her eyes watered but didn't spill. She used me, like some sort of decoy. Guilt cracked her voice. She told me to be sweet, to be visible, to always ask questions. Keep the spotlight soft, she'd say. I thought it was weird, but it made her happy. And now I get it. I was the cover story. You were the threat. I blinked. Tessa, of all people, had crossed the line. She's not just manipulative, Marla. She's surgical. That's when she pulled it out. A worn, leather-bound notebook, stained at the corners, creased at the spine. I recognized the binding. Leah used to carry it everywhere, jotting thoughts between Pilates and power plays. Tessa handed it to me. Inside, decades of blue-inked whispers. Remind Wendy to stay agreeable. Ask Barry to speak for me at brunch. Gives my words more weight. Keep Marla separate during family events. Control spiral risk. Then one that stopped my breath. Don't let Marla speak first. Her tone sets the mood. Dangerous. And below that, reward Wendy's silence. Use Tessa as emotional anchor. Keep Marla distant. She threatens balance. The page shook in my hand. My mother hadn't just orchestrated control. She'd written a damn playbook. Tessa whispered, I found it under a bag of hair curlers, hidden like contraband. I turned to her. Why are you showing me this? Because I want to stop being a pawn. And I think I was never really her daughter. I was just part of her plan. That afternoon, I laid the journal flat on Wendy's bed. She sat there, frozen. Her eyes flicked across the entries. You knew she was manipulative, I said. But did you know she documented it? Wendy looked up. Guilt smeared across her expression like too much blush. She didn't answer. Didn't need to. Dinner that night felt electric. Everyone pretending to be civilized while sitting on landmines. As dessert plates were cleared, Tessa raised her glass. To the women in this family, she said, voice steady. Especially the ones who refuse to be controlled. Leah's hand paused mid-air. Tessa added, even when they're called a threat. Leah's glass clinked a bit too hard on the table. Her smile faltered. I didn't move, didn't blink. But inside something cracked and reformed. Not just defiance, something dangerously close to hope. It was a simple system alert. Something about a document misfiled under a guest profile. Routine enough that I almost ignored it. But habit tugged at me, and I tapped it open from my tablet. Expected a maintenance request, maybe another spa cancellation. What I got instead was a legal document. The scanned heading read, Revision of Beneficiary Structure, the Whitmore Trust. I froze. My name. A strike-through. A reallocation of assets. Notes from a lawyer. Handwritten, cold, definitive. Ensure Marla never finds out. Signed, Leah Powell. It felt like being deleted in ink. I'd swallowed a lot in the past week. The silent dinners, the gaslit childhood. But this was something else. This was legal assassination. I walked into my office and locked the door behind me. The AC hummed over my head while my hands burned, gripping the tablet like it could bleed. She didn't just want me gone from her table. She wanted me gone from her history, financially, permanently. For a moment, I didn't breathe. Then I heard myself whisper, "She planned this for years." No more guessing, no more connecting dots. This was a full betrayal, notarized and dated. I found her alone in the library wing, sipping tea like a royal widow. I didn't knock. "Nice legacy you're curating," I said, setting the tablet in front of her. Her smile faded as she read the screen. Her hands twitched, but her voice was syrup. "You have your resort, Marla. What more do you want?" I stepped closer. "Respect, acknowledgement, justice, the basics. But you rewrote me like a typo." "You don't understand." "No," I cut in, my voice slicing clean. "You don't. You don't get to erase me from your life and still act like I should send flowers on Mother's Day." Her mask cracked just slightly. "I had to protect what's fair." I laughed, cold, hollow. "You don't define fairness, not after pretending I didn't exist for 14 years. She stood up then, not to argue, just to leave. But I wasn't finished. "I'm not contesting anything," I said. "You can keep your little empire. But this resort? This world I built?" I leaned in. "You're done here." Her pupils tightened. "Excuse me?" "I've informed the staff. After this trip, the Powell family will be banned from all future reservations, hospitality packages, and partnerships." She blinked. "Once. This place isn't your playground. It never was." She didn't reply, just stared like she was trying to solve me. Too late. That night, I sat by the fire pit, sent the document to my lawyer. Subject line, "Let's talk strategy." From my seat, I spotted her at the bar, laughing too loud at someone's joke, probably telling herself nothing had changed. She hadn't seen the file yet, but she would. The tide whispered like it knew things it couldn't say. I walked barefoot down the sand at sunrise, arms folded, wind teasing loose strands of my hair. The air smelled of salt, memory, and something softer. Quiet. Not peace, not yet, but something close. It wasn't revenge I was chasing. It was acknowledgement. I hadn't slept much. Not out of anger anymore, but because the weight had started shifting. Not lifting, but moving. Like I'd finally stopped holding my breath after all these years. Back at the main house, fallout was cracking through the polished resort walls. Wendy had confronted Leah the night before. I didn't hear it, but I saw the aftermath, the stiff, reddened eyes. The silence between them stretched so tight it might snap. Leah had tried to defend herself, of course, said it was all to preserve the family, said she was protecting the integrity of our name. Wendy's reply had been soft but lethal. "You destroyed it instead." No screams, no final explosion, just the slow unraveling of something once woven too tight. Later that day, I walked through the common lounge where Uncle Barry sat alone, staring at a crossword puzzle he wasn't filling in. He looked up as I passed. "She did a number on all of us," he muttered. "But you got the worst of it." I gave him a tight nod. "I survived." He swallowed like he wanted to say more, but didn't. Tessa hugged me before leaving. "I'll come back. Not for her. For you." I nodded, and that was enough. Wendy lingered longer. She didn't cry this time. I let it happen. I just let it happen. "You believed her lies," I said. "So did I, just in different ways." She pulled something from her purse, the original envelope that should have held my scholarship letter, still sealed. I didn't open it. Instead, that evening, I stood over the fire pit and tossed it into the flames, watched it curl, turn black, disappear. She never sent it. But I still arrived. There's power in that. Later, I sat on my balcony with a pen and my old leather journal, the one with corner creases and ink blotches from nights I used to cry into the pages. I wrote slowly, deliberately. I stopped trying to be invited in. I started building my own house. And now I lived in it. The family checked out just before noon the next day. No long goodbyes, no weepy reconciliations, just stiff shoulders, hollow thanks, and the occasional glance that lingered too long. Leah was the last to step into the shuttle van. She turned and looked up at me on the front steps. There was no apology in her eyes, just a quiet fury, the kind born not from guilt, but from losing control. I didn't blink. I didn't wave. She looked away first. Back home a week later, I took a photo I'd printed from the trip, me, alone, standing in front of the villa they once denied me. I framed it and hung it in the guest cottage I'd just finished renovating. Beneath it, I placed a small plaque. I was never missing. I was just waiting to be seen. Some people leave, some are forced out, and some learn to walk away before they forget who they are. That night, the wind outside rustled through the trees like a sigh. Although my family was gone, the echo of their presence would always test the silence I'd reclaimed. Sometimes the deepest cuts don't bleed. They echo, in silence, in omission, in the rooms we're not invited into. For years, I thought closure would come when someone else gave it to me. But it came when I stopped waiting. When I chose to live fully in my own worth, not in the margins of someone else's story. Maybe you felt erased, overlooked, or maybe you've had to watch others rewrite your place in the world. If that's you, know this. Healing isn't about revenge. It's about reclaiming your voice and using it even if it shakes, especially if it shakes. What does family mean to you? Is it love, obligation, control? I'd love to hear your take. Have you ever had to set a boundary that changed everything? If this story touched you, drop a 1 in the comments or tell me where you're watching from. If it didn't, I still want to know what didn't land and what did. Let's talk. And if you want more stories that speak to what we survive, what we learn, and how we rise, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Your story matters too.